Good afternoon. The first item of business this afternoon is portfolio questions on climate action and energy and transport. Question number 1, I call Audrey Nicholl.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what discussions the Transport Secretary has had with the Justice Secretary regarding action it's taking to tackle freight crime in Scotland.
Cabinet Secretary Fiona Hyslop.
While the Justice Secretary and I speak about matters of shared interest on a regular basis, we have not discussed freight crime in Scotland.
Audrey Nicholl.
Thank the Cabinet Secretary for her response. And increasing freight crime reporting is a significant challenge for hauliers, with the true cost estimated by NAVSIS at around £700 million a year, largely carried out by organised criminal gangs. And I'm aware that STPR2 included a recommendation for a national audit of freight facilities, specifically lorry parks and rest areas that are crucial in terms of driver safety and secure parking. So given the key role played by our road haulage industry in supporting our economy, not least of all in the building of new homes, constructing wind farms and improving our national infrastructure, to name but a few, can the Cabinet Secretary say more about the progress being made following the audit in order to improve safety for hauliers and reduce freight crime across the country?
Cabinet Secretary.
So I am aware of the valuable work of the National Vehicle Crime Intelligence Service, which is a UK National Police unit funded by commercial companies. I recognise the importance of secure rest and welfare facilities for hauliers across Scotland, and an initial audit of existing facilities was identified as part of the work of the second Strategic Transport Projects Review. This work is in its early stages, and rest assured we shall work with the haulage industry, Police Scotland and other stakeholders on this important matter. In the near future, I will be meeting with the Road Haulage Association, one of the largest trade associations for hauliers, regarding the provision of HGV drivers' welfare, secure facilities and aspects of freight crime.
Supplementary, Sue Weber.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for those responses, because Logistically UK have highlighted the fact that we are facing that shortage of safe and high-quality truck stops for driver dignity as well as for safety. I was wondering, in terms of our discussions with the Justice Secretary, perhaps they might go some way to also, one of the other big asks is to have a specific crime code for the recording of retail crime.
Cabinet Secretary.
So issues to do with recording of crime codes and all the rest of it, that is a matter for the Justice Secretary and more Police Scotland, so she might want to contact them specifically. But in terms of that point about dignity and respect, and also looking to plan for future energy needs of HGV, it's important that we look at the framework for that. I know the UK Government is doing so likewise, and obviously in terms of the crime figures, we know that crime tends to happen more around distribution centres and dense motorway networks, such as the Midlands, not necessarily here, but we do need to be vigilant, and I think it's important that the members have raised this issue.
Question number 2, Bob Doris.
To ask the Scottish Government whether it will provide an update on the development of a new statutory code of practice for household waste and recycling.
Cabinet Secretary Gillian Martin.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. A new statutory household recycling code of practice has been co-designed with local authorities, businesses and other waste sector stakeholders to promote greater consistency in services, increase recycling rates and cut emissions. Following the first co-design workshop in June last year, a second workshop taking place on the 27th of January this year, and a third workshop is scheduled for summer 2026. The findings of recent consultations on textile collections and rural food waste will support these workshops, and the draft code of practice will be published for consultation by the end of 2026.
Bob Doris.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for the answer. I'm deeply concerned about an association between bulk uplift charges for domestic waste and the connection to proliferation and environmental impact of fly tipping. A Scotland-wide approach to providing minimum standards and affordable costs for bulk uplift services at low cost or indeed no cost would support their communities and reduce the blight of fly tipping. I amended circular economy legislation in this Parliament to provide the Scottish Government with powers to include the operation of household bulk uplift and garden waste within any new statutory code. Will the Scottish Government, in partnership with other stakeholders, consider such measures?
Cabinet Secretary.
I'm very appreciative of Bob Doris's effort in working with the Government during the passage of the Circular Economy Act, and I know this is an issue that he feels very strongly about, as do many people. Circular Economy and Waste Route Map sets out that a review of local authority charges for waste collection services that includes bulky items and garden waste forms part of the co-design of the Household Recycling Code of Practice. And we've surveyed local authorities who are now considering their findings. A financial analysis and assessment of the behavioural impacts on recycling of these charges has also been undertaken prior to consideration, and the co-design in the workshop for summer 2026. And that review will ensure that the right incentives are in place to reduce waste, maximise the use of recycling and reuse services, which we expect to reduce the scourge of fly tipping.
Supplementary, Sarah Boyack.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. What extra resources is the Scottish Government allocating to local councils to enable them to invest in the new infrastructure so that they could separate household waste, maximise recycling, given their key role as waste producers, collectors and waste managers, given the duty that they'll have to take all reasonable steps to separate collections for metals, glass, plastics, paper and card? And will food be included?
Cabinet Secretary.
So, in addition to record funding of over £15.1 billion to local authorities in 2025-26 through the Block Grant, the Scottish Government launched the £70 million Recycling Improvement Fund in 2021, and that provides capital funding grants to help local authorities to improve that infrastructure and related services. We've supported 27 councils through 47 projects to reduce waste and to increase recycling rates. Of course, the UK-wide Extended Producer Responsibility, or EPR, for packages also came into force, and these reforms are anticipated to increase recycling rates for packaging materials for at least 76% by 2030, which will augment that funding that's come from the Scottish Government.
Question number 3, Jamie Halker-Johnson.
To ask the Scottish Government how it will ensure transport links remain open during incidents of severe weather.
Cabinet Secretary Fiona Hislop.
Transport Scotland has contracts in place with its operating companies to ensure the trunk road network is safe, efficient and well managed during periods of severe weather. Transport Scotland works in close partnership with other transport operators, including ScotRail, and with key agencies such as the Met Office and Police Scotland through established multi-agency response team MART arrangements. These arrangements can be activated during severe weather events to support a coordinated and effective response to large-scale network disruption and form part of the Scottish Government's wider resilience response, and were active during the weather warning periods since the end of December and beginning of January, and I thank all partners for their important work over that prolonged period. Maintaining strong collaboration with contractors and partners across the Scottish Government is central to planning, preparing for and responding to both planned and unplanned events, helping to keep Scotland's transport links operating wherever it is safe to do so.
Jamie Halker-Johnson.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Can I remind members of my declaration of interest, register of interest as a partner in a farming business? The recent severe weather left communities cut off across the Highlands and Islands, and the Cabinet Secretary will know of the impact this can have on our rural communities, with issues faced by patients travelling down the A9 and other roads, folk cut off from care support in the Highlands and in Orkney, where I was, and people struggling to get to work either in the public sector or in the private sector, which of course then has a massive knock-on local businesses. But this also included farmers, some of whom struggled even to get to different parts of their farms or some of their more remote land holdings to check on livestock. And many of these same farmers were also busy helping keep local roads particularly free and helping out in their communities more generally. So I was just wondering, is the Scottish Government considering Scottish Conservative calls from my Highlands and Islands colleague Tim Eagle, written to the Agriculture and the Connectivity Minister Jim Fairley, for the Government to look at how farmers may be rewarded for their community spirit and their efforts?
Cabinet Secretary.
So I absolutely put on record, as the First Minister did at the time, our thanks to everybody involved and indeed the farming community, who are obviously part of their local community in helping support their neighbours and their colleagues as well. And I think that effort, and some of that is on a contracted basis, so you might be aware in Aberdeenshire, in fact, they increased their contracted basis with farmers, but the voluntary effort of that was really significant. I think the patience of so many people for such a prolonged time was a real issue and a credit to those communities. Mutual aid was being delivered from neighbouring councils to different local authorities. Transport Scotland provided and coordinated mutual aid to Aberdeenshire Council, and indeed helped with Network Rail to make sure the lines were open by helping signallers get to where they needed to be. So with the exchange of assets, it's important that everybody pulls together. I think in that recognition, the public recognition and thanks has been given. There's obviously more established arrangements that already exist in different parts of the country, and that's more so more directly led by local delivery partners in terms of their strategic response, and they were working solidly right from the end of December.
Question number 4, Craig Hoy.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government when it last met with Swiss-Trans to discuss bus provision in Dumfries and Galloway.
Apologies, Minister Jim Fairley.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. My officials have been in regular contact with Dumfries and Galloway Council and Swiss-Trans, and the most recent meeting took place on the 9th of July to obtain updates on the changes to bus services in the area. Now, as the member knows, local authorities have the duty to identify where there is a social need for particular bus services, and they can subsidise those at their discretion. And the Scottish Government has no powers to intervene on that decision-making. In November, I have also agreed to meet with Dumfries and Galloway Council to discuss bus services, and my office is awaiting feedback from them to make those arrangements happen.
Craig Hoy.
I thank the Minister for that answer, but I'm somewhat shocked that they haven't met with Swiss-Trans or Dumfries and Galloway Council since the 9th of July last year. And in the meantime, I've held several meetings with Swiss-Trans following the near collapse of bus services following the withdrawal of stagecoach services right across the region last summer. Since then, some at-risk services such as the morning 74 service from Moffat to Dumfries have been restored, thanks in part to Annandale Community Transport Service and the work of Swiss-Trans. However, very serious concerns remain on key routes, including in Annandale and in Nithsdale. This Government is allocating a further £56 million to concessionary travel in this budget, but the problem for many of the communities that I represent is that there is simply no bus for them to travel on, discounted, free or otherwise. So will this Government now commit to properly funding rural bus services to end this social injustice which affects too many of our rural communities, including in Dumfriesshire?
Minister.
Well, as I said in my initial answer, I've written to Dumfries and Galloway Council to have these discussions about what is actually needed in their area, and I'm still awaiting a response from them. So we will continue to look at. But the Scottish Government, the member is absolutely right to say that we have put £50+ million into concessionary travel, but we've also invested £4 million to support local authorities to build business cases for local bus improvements. That's ongoing. We've got our bus pilot, which will be delivered in Hi-Trans and Z-Trans. That's a commitment that we're giving to bus operators and local authorities to make sure that we can deliver those services. There will be a further round of the plugged-in communities, which will directly help rural communities. So we're taking a range of measures right across the piece to make sure that we have the engagement and the services that local people want in these rural communities, and I'm determined to make sure we continue to do more.
Question number 5, Paul McLennan.
To ask the Scottish Government what discussions it has had regarding transport solutions to support the current and future development of blind wells in East Lothian.
Cabinet Secretary Fiona Hislop.
For the current development at Blindwells, Government officials are engaging with East Lothian Council and the developer to implement improvements to the A1 Trunk Road. These improvements were agreed as part of the existing planning permission for up to 1,600 homes. For future development, officials are supporting the Council as it prepares a new local development plan. Officials are also working with the Council and other partners on a strategic outline business case for up to 10,000 homes, which has been submitted to the Scottish Government under the Edinburgh and South East Scotland City Region deal.
Paul McLennan.
Can I thank the Cabinet Secretary for the answer? Housing colleagues, as she knows, in the Scottish Government are engaging with the East Lothian Council and UK Government on the Blindwells business case she refers to, which would see the potential of a new town for East Lothian. What actions can be taken by Transport Scotland and by the Cabinet Secretary to ensure transport solutions are progressed in tandem with housing proposals?
Cabinet Secretary.
So the Government is committed to making sure infrastructure is considered and understood early, as stated in the National Planning Framework 4. Transport Scotland staff are engaging with the Council in the business case for Blindwells and using the normal appraisal and business case process that will identify what transport infrastructure Blindwells may need and set out a clear plan on how these will be funded and delivered.
Question number 6, Christine Graham.
Thank you very much, Deputy Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what action it is taking to encourage all cyclists to ensure they are visible, particularly during the winter period, and that they comply with the requirements of the Highway Code.
Cabinet Secretary Fiona Hislop.
So we expect all road users to respect the rules of the road and follow the Highway Code, advising cyclists to wear light or fluorescent clothing in poor light and reflective items in the dark. In 2025-2026, the Scottish Government invested a record £48 million in road safety, and a further £2 million was awarded to the Bikeability Scotland cycle training programme, which promotes safe and responsible cycling to school children. Police Scotland's Be Bright, Be Seen campaign in Edinburgh is a great example of partnership working to promote cyclist safety during the winter months, with an emphasis on being visible.
Christine Graham.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer. Now, if I put down a marker, I'm not demonising all cyclists. It's probably the minority, but it's a growing minority. There are far too many incidents of cyclists who do not have particularly effective rear lights, and some have none at all, and they can be decked up from head to toe in black. On those dark and often dreich evenings and mornings, some can hardly be seen until, as a motorist, you're almost on top of them and collision just averted. So, I hear what the Cabinet Secretary has to say, but would the Minister consider, and along with Police Scotland, a national campaign of be seen, be safe, or be safe, be seen, or be bright, be seen, whatever you like, but for goodness sake, be seen?
Cabinet Secretary.
So Be Bright, Be Seen is absolutely essential for cyclists and also for other road users who are very concerned about those cyclists who don't have lights and who do not dress brightly, particularly in the winter months. The success of the campaign in Edinburgh, I understand it's been expanded to the EH6 area, but I'll ensure that that's brought to the attention of the strategic partnership group that I chair on road safety, because this is essential. I can also let the member know that Road Safety Scotland's early years and primary learning resources introduced the topic early on, because you have to encourage good practice as early as possible. So we need to look at all the contributing factors, but obviously there's one thing about actually accidents, but there's near misses that obviously distress people as well.
Question number 7, Douglas Ross.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government when it last met with Transport Scotland and what issues were discussed.
Cabinet Secretary Fiona Hislop.
So Transport Scotland, as civil servants, provide the entirety of the official support to me as Cabinet Secretary for Transport on policy and all matters relating to my transport portfolio. They are responsible to me and deliver the national transport needs of Scotland. The most recent meeting involving Transport Scotland officials took place earlier today with the Roadworks Commissioner, and I have had 19 meetings with or involving Transport Scotland officials since the 5th of January, covering operational delivery, policy matters across a range of areas, whether it's trunk roads or ferries or weather resilience.
Douglas Ross.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Hamish and Elizabeth Cullerton own and run the only food van that has been authorised by Highland Council to operate on the A9, Highland Cuisine. And in an article for the P&J last year, they were described as providing a warm, welcome site, serving up hot meals and a warm welcome to the A9's weary travellers. They are providing a great service to local people, myself included. I often stop there on my way down to Edinburgh, and indeed someone from Tasmania said they provided them with the best sandwich they'd ever eaten. Part of their problem, however, is they are not being allowed permission from Transport Scotland to put signage up to alert people to their food van. So either people pass by, missing the opportunity to perhaps take a break from driving and get some warm food or coffee, or they stop too quickly, and that could cause an accident. I've been in correspondence with the Cabinet Secretary about this. I wonder if, in her next meeting with Transport Scotland, if she could ask them to have a more reasonable approach. So this food van, which is providing a great service to travellers on the A9, could get the signage to make it safer for people to stop there.
Cabinet Secretary.
So I think the member knows that I have some sympathy with this situation, but it's a solution that needs to be resolved. The concern just now is that any proposal for signage that is within the trunk road boundary or in the trunk road verge would be problematic. Now, that doesn't exclude signage, perhaps with the landowner's agreement somewhere around that. So in the reply from Alison Irvine, who is the Chief Executive of Transport Scotland, to the member on the 24th of September, she did indicate that Transport Scotland would be happy to consider this through the appropriate planning process if there was a way through this. She hasn't heard back from the constituents, but they stand ready to hear what their proposals are, but they may need to talk to neighbouring landowners to see if there can be a solution. Brown signs are for visitor attractions, etc. We do have some concerns about people wanting to turn right when they're heading north. That's an issue. And clearly, the concerns about how we do this in a safe way. There are rules, quite understandably so, but we do stand ready to try and have some kind of engagement, but it does need some kind of practical solution that may involve neighbouring land.
Supplementary, Kenneth Gibson.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Transport Scotland know that under the new contract, which is supposedly accountable to communities, CalMac proposes to impose completely unnecessary cuts on the Lags to Cumbria ferry service over the busy summer period, allegedly to provide additional maintenance that for decades has been undertaken during the 10 hours in every 24 when the ferry doesn't sail. The Cabinet Secretary previously stopped CalMac from reducing its service to Cumbria by a quarter, which is very much welcomed. Working with Transport Scotland and CalMac, will she ensure that these latest proposed timetable changes, which can only be detrimental to the island's economy and islanders vehemently oppose, are ditched forthwith?
Cabinet Secretary.
So the member has raised this previously. Reliability means regular maintenance. Regular maintenance is to be part of the new contract, but I understand the concerns of Mr Gibson and having raised it previously regarding the Cumbria service. So that regular maintenance, out with the annual overhaul schedule, is intended to reduce unplanned disruption and overruns, and actually improve the overall service reliability over the piece. CalMac are at the beginning of this process. I've been clear that they must work closely with local communities to ensure that any proposals are fully discussed. I am meeting CalMac on the 28th of January to discuss a range of matters, including their proposals for introducing scheduled maintenance windows, and I would reiterate that at this time no final decisions have been taken in relation to their operation on Cumbria, and I'll raise it at that meeting on the 28th of January.
Question number 8, Katie Clark.
To ask the Scottish Government what steps it is taking to promote the development of municipally owned energy sources.
Cabinet Secretary Gillian Martin.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The Scottish Government is committed to growing community and local energy to ensure communities across Scotland play an active role in renewable energy development as part of a just transition towards net zero. And this includes providing support to local authorities, such as the recent funding given to Carlanun Ellen Shear, who are currently exploring opportunities for shared ownership of energy projects alongside community groups. And we also continue to work with Great British Energy on its local power plan to ensure that any proposed support and funding provided through this initiative works for local authorities in Scotland to develop their own energy projects.
Katie Clark.
In October, the new solar farm in Kilwinning was switched on. It is the first of its kind, both owned and operated by a local authority in Scotland. And I commend the work of the previous Labour administration in North Ayrshire, which pioneered the project, which will create enough energy to power 2,000 homes. The income generated by the solar farm will also be used to fund local services and encourage the development of further local renewable energy projects. North Ayrshire is also set to deliver a second solar farm at Irvine. Will the Scottish Government learn from the North Ayrshire experience, and what more can be done to support councils in developing municipally owned energy sources?
Cabinet Secretary.
I'm delighted to hear of the success of the projects that Katie Clark mentions, and of course there's many others throughout the country. What I think is really important, in the same way that councils work together at COSLA and they work together in other fora that they meet in, that they share very good practice, I think that is something that we have got enough leaders in this space to be able to encourage and facilitate the learning from other councils to do likewise. And of course the Government stands ready to support that work.
Supplementary, Douglas Lumsden.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. So now that the Cabinet Secretary is no longer responsible for approving large-scale energy projects, including municipally owned energy sources, will she now do something that she's failed to do so far, and that is meet the campaign groups up and down the country who are seeing their communities trashed with monster pylons, substations and battery storage?
Cabinet Secretary.
The Scottish Government will be consulting on the good practice principles, and this will give me an opportunity as Cabinet Secretary responsible for the good practice principles to engage with all stakeholders throughout Scotland on good practice for all energy developments.
Thank you, Cabinet Secretary. That concludes portfolio questions on climate action and energy and transport. There will be a short pause before we move on to the next item of business to allow front bench teams to change position. Thank you.